Life's Transience and the Art of Emotional Detachment. Life often confronts us with the undeniable truth that people come and go. We bond with others, build connections, and anchor our emotions to these relationships. Yet, what happens when those bonds break? How do we handle the emotional weight when someone no longer occupies the same space in our lives, or when we realize they never shared the same emotional investment? You might find yourself asking, how do I stop caring? Or, can I truly detach emotionally without losing a piece of myself? This is where Stoicism, particularly the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, offers us a guiding light. The Stoics were masters at understanding human emotions, not by avoiding them, but by learning to balance their influence on our lives. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about regaining the power to act with clarity and inner peace. In this guide, I'll share 5 timeless Stoic principles inspired by Marcus Aurelius to help you emotionally detach from someone. This isn't just theoretical, it's practical advice meant to reshape how you engage with yourself and others. Rule 1. Embrace the impermanence of life. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. When it comes to emotional attachments, we often cling to a personal narrative about someone, their importance in our lives, but the reality is that all relationships are transient. One moment you're close, the next they're gone, whether through distance, death, or the slow fade of intimacy. The Stoics' first rule of detachment is to embrace impermanence. Realizing that no connection is permanent helps you become more conscious of the present. Think about holding a handful of sand at the beach. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. This is a natural law of life. The more we try to possess something or someone, the faster they fade. In my own life, I experienced this with a friendship that spanned over a decade. We shared everything, dreams, fears, late-night conversations. But over time, things changed. Despite my resistance, the emotional distance grew. It wasn't until I accepted that the friendship had run its course that I was able to release the emotional weight. Marcus Aurelius would have advised the same. Accept that things will end, and you will suffer less when they do. Rule 2. Master your emotions through rational thought. There's a tendency to believe that emotions control us. You feel pain, sadness, and anger, natural reactions when you're emotionally attached to someone. But here's the hard truth. Emotions are not reality. They are products of your thoughts, beliefs, and interpretations of events. Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics emphasized this principle. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Emotional detachment begins with understanding that your mind governs your emotional state. Your thoughts about someone can either ignite a storm of feelings or pacify it. For example, let's say you're going through a breakup. You feel shattered, replaying conversations, overanalyzing details, and asking, why did this happen? Or, how could they move on so easily? The Stoic response is to shift focus. Instead of letting emotions control you, ask yourself, what are the facts here? How can I think about this differently? It's about choosing thoughts that free you from emotional suffering, not ones that fuel it. Consider this. When something happens, like an argument with a loved one, feeling ignored, or facing disappointment, what's the first thing you do? You interpret the situation and assign it meaning. But it's not the event itself that causes turmoil, it's your perception of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." This means your emotions are directly influenced by your internal dialogue. Imagine sending a heartfelt text message to someone you care about, a friend, romantic partner or family member. Hours go by with no response. Immediately your mind starts racing. Did I say something wrong? Are they mad at me? Do they not care about me? With every passing minute, your emotions intensify, first concern, then frustration, and perhaps even anxiety or anger. But what's the truth? Is it their delayed response causing your emotional storm, or is it your interpretation of their silence? The Stoic approach is to challenge these automatic emotional responses. Rule 2, continued. Reacting with rational thought. When emotions arise, pause and ask yourself, what are the facts? Often the facts are simple and neutral, while everything else is speculation. For example, if someone hasn't responded to a message, the only fact is just that. They haven't responded. Everything beyond that, like imagining they're upset or no longer care about you, is pure conjecture. Instead of letting emotions spiral out of control, recognize that feelings of anxiety or rejection aren't rooted in reality, but are fueled by your own thoughts. Marcus Aurelius offers timeless advice. Question your thoughts. Don't just accept them as truth. I remember a similar situation with a close friend. We were discussing something important, and suddenly they stopped responding. At first, I brushed it off. But as hours passed, unease crept in. I thought, maybe they're upset with me. Did I say something wrong? By the end of the night, I had convinced myself that the friendship was on the verge of collapse. My emotions, worry, guilt, and frustration were overwhelming. But when I paused to reflect, I realized the truth. Nothing had actually happened. My friend had simply gotten busy. The next day, they responded casually, unaware of the emotional storm I had weathered. In that moment, Marcus Aurelius's wisdom resonated deeply. Focus on what's within your control, your thoughts and actions, not the outcome or another person's feelings. By redirecting your mind, you can release emotional turmoil. Instead of obsessing over what you can't control, center yourself on what you can. If this resonates with you, share an experience in the comments where you've noticed similar patterns in your relationships. Your insights could help others build healthier emotional connections. Rule 3. Practice negative visualization. At first glance, negative visualization may seem counterintuitive. Why would anyone deliberately imagine losing something or someone they care about? Doesn't that invite unnecessary stress? The truth is, this Stoic practice, championed by Marcus Aurelius, is a powerful tool for emotional detachment, not by hardening your heart, but by preparing your mind for life's inevitable changes. The concept is simple yet profound. By imagining worst-case scenarios in advance, you reduce their emotional impact when or if they occur. This isn't about becoming pessimistic. It's about training yourself to accept reality as it is, rather than as you wish it to be. Marcus Aurelius advises, do not disturb yourself by imagining the whole of life's troubles at once. Meet each as it arises with calmness and self-control. Negative visualization builds resilience. Picture someone you deeply care about, a partner, friend, or family member. Now imagine your life without them. How does it feel? Uncomfortable? Painful? That discomfort is the point. By facing the possibility of loss in your mind, you reduce its power to devastate you in reality. I practiced this during a time when my best friend was considering moving overseas. We had been inseparable, and the thought of their absence filled me with dread. Instead of suppressing that fear, I embraced it. Each day I imagined what life would be like without them. I visualized routines without their presence, connecting with other friends, and finding new sources of joy. When they finally moved, the loss still stung, but I wasn't blindsided. I had mentally rehearsed it, and that preparation made all the difference. The wisdom of impermanence. Another aspect of negative visualization is recognizing that loss is a natural part of life. Everything you cherish will eventually be gone through separation, change, or death. This isn't meant to be a morbid thought, but a liberating one. When you stop expecting permanence, you stop feeling entitled to it. And when you release entitlement, the fear of loss diminishes. Consider relationships. Most of us enter them assuming they'll last forever. But nothing is guaranteed. The Stoic approach isn't to cling to permanence, but to appreciate what you have while you have it, knowing it will eventually change. I experienced this in a past relationship. I was consumed with anxiety about it ending, constantly worrying about losing the person. But when I began practicing negative visualization, I stopped trying to control the outcome. I imagined life after the relationship, and while painful, it helped me cherish the present moment. When the relationship eventually ended, I was far more prepared than I ever thought I'd be. The real gift of negative visualization is the inner strength it builds. Resilience through negative visualization. By repeatedly imagining worst-case scenarios, you develop an inner stability that cannot be easily shaken by life's inevitable changes. This practice teaches you a profound truth: no matter what happens, you will be okay. This is the ultimate form of emotional detachment, not from life itself, but from the illusion that you need things to stay the same to be happy. Rule 4. Focus on what you can control. One of the core teachings of Stoicism, and one of the most empowering realizations you can embrace, is the distinction between what is within your control and what is not. This understanding is crucial when it comes to emotionally detaching from someone. Why? Because much of the pain we feel in relationships stems from trying to control things we simply cannot. Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, emphasizes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your thoughts, actions, and responses are within your control. Everything else, other people's behavior, outcomes of situations, or the passage of time, is not. The more you try to control what's beyond your influence, the more you will suffer." Emotional detachment, then, is not about coldly distancing yourself from others, but letting go of attachments to outcomes you cannot dictate. The struggle to control others. When you're deeply attached to someone, be it a romantic partner, a friend, or a family member, it's natural to want to influence how they feel about you. You might wish for their love, appreciation, or validation. But here's the truth: you can't control their emotions. Reflect on a time when you tried to influence someone's feelings or behavior. Perhaps you went out of your way to win someone's affection, or exhausted yourself trying to prove your worth to a friend who didn't truly value you. How did that feel? Likely, it left you frustrated, anxious, and powerless because you were chasing something beyond your control. A personal example. I once found myself in a relationship where I was constantly trying to keep things together. I planned thoughtful dates, sent heartfelt messages, and was emotionally available, yet it always felt like I was one step behind. They would pull away, and I would try harder, caught in a cycle of endless anxiety. Finally, I embraced the Stoic principle of focusing only on what I could control, my actions and self-worth. I realized I couldn't make them love me more or treat me better. I could only control my response. In that moment, I chose to let go. The relief was immense. Embracing emotional autonomy. One of the most liberating steps toward emotional detachment is embracing emotional autonomy, the understanding that your happiness, peace, and emotional stability do not depend on someone else's behavior or feelings. When you place your emotional well-being in someone else's hands, you give away your power. You become a prisoner to their actions, moods, and decisions. Imagine being in a friendship where you constantly feel sidelined. Your friend no longer prioritizes you, leaving you feeling neglected. Naturally, this hurts, and you may find yourself ruminating, "What did I do wrong? Why have they pulled away?" But here's the key. Their behavior is outside your control. The only thing you can control is your response. Do you continue chasing after someone who doesn't value you, or do you focus on nurturing relationships and activities that bring you joy? By shifting your attention to what you can control, your emotional state, you reclaim your power. Reclaiming inner peace. In my own life, I've had friendships where I gave too much power to how the other person treated me. If they were distant, I felt unworthy. If they were attentive, I felt valued. It was an exhausting emotional roller coaster. When I started applying Stoic principles, I made a conscious decision to stop tying my self-worth to how others acted. Instead, I focused on cultivating my emotional well-being independently. This didn't mean I cared less. It meant I stopped letting their actions dictate my inner peace. The goal of emotional detachment. The ultimate goal of emotional detachment isn't indifference, it's acceptance. Acceptance that life is unpredictable. People are unpredictable. No matter how much we wish to control everything, we cannot, but we can control how we respond to these uncertainties. By focusing on what is within our power, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering and cultivate inner peace. Would you like me to proceed with the next rule or make further adjustments? Let me know. Acceptance, seeing things as they are. Imagine you're dealing with a breakup. You feel lost, hurt, and overwhelmed. Your mind races with questions. What if I had done something differently? Why did this happen? Can I fix this? These questions, though natural, stem from a desire to control the uncontrollable, an attempt to reverse the past. Instead of tormenting yourself with what-ifs, the Stoic response is to accept the situation as it is. Marcus Aurelius wisely wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Obstacles are not hindrances, they are opportunities for growth. When you accept what's outside your control, you stop wasting energy trying to change the past or influence others and start focusing on how you can move forward. A personal story of acceptance. One of the toughest times in my life was the sudden and painful end of a relationship I thought was solid. At first, I was consumed by the desire to understand why it ended and what I could have done differently. But slowly, I realized the only way to find peace was to accept the situation as it was, not as I wished it to be. I couldn't change the past, and I couldn't control the other person's feelings. What I could control was my reaction. By embracing the present reality, I found strength in acceptance. Rule 5. Reflect on the bigger picture. When you're caught in the emotional intensity of a relationship or a difficult situation, it's easy to lose perspective. Stoicism, particularly through the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, encourages us to step back and reflect on the grander scheme of things. Aurelius often emphasized that our troubles, fears, and desires are fleeting moments in the vastness of time. By adopting this broader viewpoint, emotional detachment becomes easier. Gaining perspective. Ask yourself, will this pain matter in 5 years? Does this person truly define my entire existence? Shifting your focus from immediate emotional turmoil to a higher level of reflection reveals that much of your distress is tied to temporary circumstances. Stoicism teaches that no single person or event should wield such power over your emotional well-being. Your life as a bigger story. When you're overly attached to someone, it's easy to make them the center of your universe. Your happiness and self-worth become entangled with their presence or absence in your life. But stepping back helps you see the bigger picture. Life is ever-changing, and relationships, however intense, are only one part of your journey. You are a complete individual with your own unique path and experiences. In the heat of a breakup or emotional conflict, it's challenging to grasp this perspective. But reflecting on the larger scope of your life reminds you that you've survived emotional storms before. Life moved on, and so did you. A personal reflection. I once went through a breakup that felt like the end of my world. For weeks I fixated on the past, convinced that the future had lost its brightness. But with time, I reflected on the bigger picture. I realized that while this person had been important, they didn't define my life. They were part of my journey, not its entirety. This shift in perspective allowed me to emotionally detach and see the relationship as one chapter in a much larger narrative. Embracing impermanence. The Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, emphasized the impermanence of all things, relationships, emotions, and circumstances. Everything in life is transient. What truly matters is how you respond to these inevitable changes. By reflecting on the bigger picture, you cultivate inner peace. You understand that life will continue to flow, regardless of your temporary attachments. Emotional detachment isn't about apathy, it's about liberation. By recognizing life's impermanence, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering. You stop clinging to fleeting things and instead appreciate them while they last. Emotional freedom. Letting go. Ultimately, emotional detachment is not about shutting down your emotions or closing yourself off from the world. It's about building resilience and gaining control over how you respond to life's inevitable changes. The Stoic path offers not a quick fix, but a way to inner peace. By embracing impermanence, mastering your emotions through rational thought, and reflecting on the bigger picture, you will find emotional detachment to be an act of self-liberation. So the next time you feel yourself gripping too tightly to someone or something, ask yourself, do I control my emotions or do they control me? Emotional freedom awaits those who dare to let go.